All right. I've had a couple people who've said they've been unhappy with the material editor, and they don't really know how to use it, so they'd like a little bit more information. So I've opened up the material editor, and I tend to use the compact material editor versus the Slate material editor. I just grew up learning the compact material editor, and it just makes more sense to me. So that's what I'm going to explain today. Let's go through the options real quick. Really simple. Let's first start with the sample type. Sample type is if you double click on an object, you can actually open it up in a new window and look at it accordingly. So the first thing is the sample type. We can actually go in and change the sample type. Now, if you notice, there's a little question mark here. What we can do is go into the options, and that brings up an option here, and I can actually just choose an object, say OK, and then in here I can go and zoom up in, and there's my teapot. So I can actually right click on this window and I can rotate around and so to show different things in there. So for that part, that's basically what you can zoom in and do that. So there's the different types is basically being able to look at it differently. Backlight is the backlight on the material. The background is the background on the material. Sample UV is actually you can tile it by 1, 4, 3, or more. And then the video color check allows you to check and see if your colors are video safe, which if you've used Photoshop enough, you'll know that some colors are too bright for monitors and stuff like that. Make preview. If you have an animated material, you can actually make a preview of it running. Options, of course, takes you to the options. And then the one thing that I use quite a bit is the material navigator. And this gives you the material and all the different tools and so forth down the road. Okay, now get material basically means it allows you to get the material from another object. So if I click it, I would open up the thing. But you have to have, in order to have this open up, you have to have a material on an object in the scene. Put material to the scene basically allows you to take a material and put it to an object. The entire scene. And then material to selection, pretty much the same thing here. What this does is you have to select an object and you can put it to selection. Same thing as if you right click, drag and copy, you can right click and drag and move right like that, and it works. Make unique or make a material copy does exactly that. Make unique, when you copy something, it turns it into an instance. This would make it unique. You can save it off as a separate material. So say you like a material so much that you want to keep using it, like skin or chrome or something like that. That would save it to a library so you can open it up in different programs. Material ID is used for the pretty much the FX side of stuff, and show shaded material in Viewport pretty much does that. I always check that box. And then show end result is going to be here, and then this is go up and down and parent and back and forth. So use those occasionally here, but because I have the Navigator open, I pretty much use that more. Alright, so let's take a look at this. This part here is basically a predefined area of the most maps that you'd use. Opacity, it's a color map for self-illumination, diffuse and specular, and then your highlights and glossiness and softness. Okay. Now, material type is there's different material types. There's blend, there's multi-layer metal, and all it is really like a change of material type. So like this is metal, and it doesn't have that specular map. So like Blinn would have. Blinn is a hump. This is a double hump. Metal is a multi-hump. So it really changes according to how you're doing your stuff. In game engines, it really doesn't matter. You're just attaching a Blinn and sending it over. But Blinn has the most basic options in there. You can actually go into the standard materials. If you click on standard, this is actually your material type. So this is where you do ray trace, ink and paint, blends and composites, a number of other materials that you can pretty much put in here. So that's really your basic all encompass what type of shader you're using. Mental ray I think is in here too. And I'm not seeing it right now, but the architectural right there, that would be more your mental ray stuff. And I'm not really, because I do more game stuff, I'm not going to really go into that section. But the basics of it is your maps right here are pretty much most of your maps that you will use. And what I mean by that is, so if we're here, we click on the diffuse, we're going to go to Bitmap. Okay, now Bitmap is just to grab a picture, but you can use any one of these other materials. And what these are procedural materials: fall off, gradients, noise, bump maps, particle ages, smoke, stucco. They all have their whole aspect of what you can do with them, and I'll go over one or two of them after I'm done with the basics, but I won't go over the each one individually. They're procedural maps, so they're all created by mathematical equations. But for a bitmap, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go to my home page here, and I have color. I'm going to open that up. Actually, it won't let me do that, so there we go. So I just created right now, this is a very simple color map. Let me drag and rotate. So all it is a 512 by 512, and it has the rainbow of colors here. That's all it is. Nothing fancy. Now you can actually tile this. Offset it basically means to push to the left or right, up or down with the U or V. And then the tiling is, you can double the tiling. Now because we are in the diffuse color of a bitmap, so you can see bitmap, diffuse color, and this is why you label your stuff, consistently. So I would actually go up here, click up here, and instead of default, I would go test material. And never use spaces when doing this, because if you ever do Mac scripts, spaces kind of suck. So then you can always go back down to diffuse color, and here you can actually control, what the image you're using. You can control what, like tiling. I can actually tile this by 2, and I can tab down and then tile by 2 again. And what happens is it will, let's go to a box, so you can actually see that it's tiled twice. Excuse me. So what we can do is, and you can apply cropping on it. So say you've got multiple images on a site, you can actually view the image, control if you want to crop. You can actually go in here and only do half of this. Say you don't want the red in there or the orange, and then we can go like that, and then say like that, and then your orange should disappear. Oh, it would always help to hit apply. So then we can hit apply in there, and that will actually crop out. You can actually get more. As you can see, I can straighten that out a little bit based on, I mean, if I want, I can just do a sliver and really tighten that up. But for the most part, that's what the cropping does. Otherwise, we can just take that off. Alpha source is when you're using a TIFF or a Targa or a Photoshop file and it has an alpha in there. You can actually use the alpha to create opacity and stuff like that. Time and output, I generally don't use that much. They are pretty much, if you're doing movies in their output, you can actually control the different types of, I can invert it. I can, put a clamp on there and control the colors a little bit more. So a number of different things in there for output. And again, I don't use it that much, so I'm not going to go too much into it. This is a basic one after all. So we hit this button, we go up to the parent. Now this is our diffuse map right there. And what we can do is, if we're going to go down here, you notice that your map, it has your color in there. And what you can do is go to the next one. What we're going to do is we're just going to click and drag this downward, and instead of copy, I'm going to do swap. Okay, so now when if you look at Specular Color takes a color map, and as you can see here, it gives it a light rainbow hue. You remember now that this color here is any color I want, and if I'm choosing gray, gray is the mid-tone color, so that's kind of what I'm using. But it'll always go back to gray when there's nothing in here, or whatever color you choose. The specular level is a little bit different. So specular color is if you shine a light on it, the color is going to become more prevalent. So when I shine a light on this, yes, it looks great, but the colors are going to pop out. And then these spinners here, you can actually control up and down how much of that color comes out. No color, all the color. So that's pretty much that. So I'm going to just, and then if I want, I can uncheck the box, and it'll keep the color in there, but it won't use that color anymore. Specular level is, I'm going to choose another bitmap, and I've got pretty much same thing here, except it's in gray. And I'm going to go to bitmap here. I'm going to go back up. So the gray color for specular color, what that'll do is that'll control your shininess. So if you look at this view image here, this is going to be super shiny, and this is not going to reflect light at all. So notice here I put on the backlight, and because the light's shining, this is not going to pull in the light, and this will pull in all the light. So there's that. And then the glossiness is pretty much the same thing. Hold on a second. Alright, so I was going to, so I can swap that. The glossiness is pretty much these, pretty close to the shininess, except the glossiness is the more reflective highlight, whereas this is the more of the white highlight for the specular level. Illumination is the illumination is the illusion that it's actually brighter, so it'll actually project the illusion that it's lit from behind the material, but it won't actually put any light out there. Opacity is the transparency. It'll actually make your material transparent, and so that what that does is basically, say you have a torn cape or something like that, instead of trying to model the torn cape, you can actually put this in the opacity slot, and black basically is transparent and white is solid. So as you can see, I've got that gradient color, so it'll go from to a transparent color here. So there's that aspect. You can create your opacity there. Your filter color will allow you to create something akin to the glass. It'll create semi-transparent materials through there. Bump, what that does is the bump material pretty much gives you the illusion that the material is in 3 dimensions. White is higher than black, and if I put this up to 100, you can actually see the ridges go from higher to lower here. You can also assign I'm going to just dump this over here real quick into reflection. In the bump map, you can also assign the what's known as the normal bump, and then you can put a normal map in there too. So that'll give you the additional 3D effect, more texture to your surface. So there's that aspect. Reflection and refraction. Pretty much the reflection is the, how do I want to word this? Reflection is the map that you would use to, say you've got a shiny ball or a shiny cube. The reflection map would be what is outside reflecting on the surface. The refraction map is similar to that, but it's the surface itself, more of like the translucency of the surface refracting on there. And then the displacement right here, say OK swap, is the displacement is the map itself is kind of like a bump, but think of 10 times more drastic. Displacement is what you use to create a terrain by using a bitmap and stuff like that. So when you figure this all out, you can actually create several different types of things. So say we dump this into the bump map. Let's toss the specular color on there. Let's go into specular color, and I'm going to change this back to 1x1 tiling. And then we can go up into the level. Now, as you see, I'm adding all these additional maps on here. I'm going to add I'm going to copy the specular color. I'm going to copy the grayscale. We're going to add in the self-illumination map here, and you'll notice you'll get a color change there as well. And then you can go in and of course change all the numbers. So if you want less specular level, we can add in 50% of that specular level, so on and so forth. And you can change all these. And now if you notice that this second tier here is all these maps. If you want, you can actually click on this, and instead of a bump map, you could do, say, a mix. And I'm going to just keep the old map as a bump map, or as a sub map. So this mix will have 50% color, and then I can put in a, say I put in a dent pattern. And I can go up, and then I can say mix the amount, so on, and you'll get multi materials here. So, and that's really what it is. And as you can see, you can go pretty much infinite all the way down. The more you have, of course, the harder it is to render, or it takes more to render. But for the most part, you can pretty much drop your maps on there and go through this whole material editor and create really in-depth materials. And that's why I did a video on the render to texture. You can actually do procedural maps with this and then get all the materials off and put them in a UV map. So, the navigation of this particular one is just going back and forth. And you can actually, add in mental ray stuff, which I'm not going to get into too much. But as you can see, those maps that I put in here, you can actually control the shininess. We can actually, make it glossier material. You can even make it a semi-transparent material and so forth. So it's just a matter of going through and adding that. Now, as you see, when I render this, it doesn't look anything spectacular. But let's go back in here. We're in the top level here. Let's go back in here. Let's take our bump map and put it up to 200, and then we can render it. And let's see here. Let's toss off this specular and specular color ones and see if we can get a 3D look here. Yeah, and see the bump map, you can kind of see the bump map going in there. We can actually go in and this is tiled. This is fine. So we can go in and you can look at the the different bump maps. I think the illumination is kind of screwing it up too. But yeah, you can add in a number of different things. We can go in, and if you want, you can always get rid of like this mix, and you can turn the mix back into a bitmap. Color, there's my color JPEG open. So now we've gone back and like so on and so forth. So you can go in and subtract. Now the only difference is that if you go into your Slate material editor, the Slate material editor is pretty much the same device, except you have to add in all the additional stuff. So here's your test material, your standard. These are all your maps, and then this is what you're adding in. So if I wanted to do a new material, so I wanted to add in a standard material, that's my standard material. If I want to add in a bitmap, I have to scroll down here, add a bitmap. It's going to ask me what bitmap. I'm going to just say open, and there's my bitmap, and then I can link that to my diffuse color, and so on and so forth. And I can actually, it's a tree system, very similar to the hierarchy view, except that this is all the additional things. And you just, if you have, you want to double click on something, you get the same parameters here, and then your navigator, and so you can scroll around. And that's the same thing. I've just been so used to the compact editor that I use that the most. So you can kind of go through and see what's going on and work with everything. And that's pretty much the material editor in a kind of a nutshell. It's just all your maps are here, and each map represents a different type of what's the word I want to say? Specularity, color, opacity, and by building those maps up, you're going to get a more realistic tone. Putting just a straight up diffuse channel, diffuse color is going to look pretty flat when you render it. So that's really what it boils down to. Another thing is with this, you can actually go in here and you can control the angles. I can actually rotate these things around in W and change the different angles and stuff like that. You can actually open up this rotate coordinate system here and just kind of rotate it around until you find what you like. And you can control all these numbers, blur, offset, and things like that. So I mean, going through here and looking at this, it seems very intimidating, but if you just stick on the home page, and like I said, always use the navigator to see where everything is, control all your stuff so that you know what's going on. So like if I'm in Specular Level, and I've got a map in here, tell me what this map is, and that'll actually help you out a lot more. Remember to label your stuff. And so that's pretty much a lowdown on the material editor. I hope it helps.